नमस्कार दोस्तों, मैं अमिताभ and you are watching A Word with a Word. And as committed, we are always at school times ready to bring and take up issues of relevance, something which has an impact on society from various spheres of life. And in A Word with a Word, we always take up an issue to have a dialogue with the word. And we always have a very eminent resource from all across the corners of the country, and today is no different. We are today having a resource connected from three different corners of the world's largest democracy, that is India. We have a resource connected from Maharashtra, West Bengal, and Uttar Pradesh, so that we get perspective from different directions and different dimensions. And friends, today our theme for discussion is in the series that we have taken up as a challenge, something which is a buzzword today and is going to have very, very far reaching manifestation on society and impact on society, and that is national education policy. And friends, we have taken up in our first episode, we have talked about the general overview and the perception that we have. In our first episode, we have, that is the second episode, we have taken up the specific chapter by chapter discussion, theme by theme discussion. And in our previous episode for national education policy, we have talked about early childhood education and try to develop an insight and have a word with a word on that particular theme. And today we are going to the next very, very important issue in our national education policy, and that is foundational literacy and numeracy. You know, it is being analyzed that in India, foundational literacy, our elementary schools are deprived of the foundational functional literacy and numeracy itself. Almost about, if we go by the statistical projection, more than 5 crore children are not exposed to that. And with that as a major vacuum and a devoid, it becomes difficult for children as they grow up to comprehend whatever other education that we want to provide. And that is where in our national education policy, this has been taken up as a major issue of concern, and there is a major emphasis for the same. And to discuss this with us, we have Ms. Mini Sen Gupta, principal of Birla School, Birla High School, Mukundpur in Kolkata, West Bengal. We have Indrani Guhaji, principal of Credo Word School in Dahanu in Maharashtra. We have Mr. Manoj Kumar Panda, principal of the Jain International School, Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh. I'll be taking up all these resource eminent people who are right now waiting to be brought on the screen to take the debate and the discussion and the dialogue on. But before we invite them on screen to have a word with all of us here watching us and hearing us, and who will be watching us in the recorded mode later, before we enter into that discussion and dialogue and a word with a word, allow me to share a brief summary prepared by the School Times team on this particular aspect of new education policy, that is foundational literacy and numeracy. So let us first get a brief perspective, and then I'll invite all the panelists to be with us to debate and have a dialogue on the Welcome to A Word with a Word, Indrani ji, Mini Singupta ma'am, and Mr. Manoj Kumar Panda sir. Welcome to A Word with a Word, and thank you for agreeing to be with us. And I would like to tell you that the school times platform, this word with a word, a lot of love and affection has been showered, and people have been really valuing the information and input they've got, and they've always valued the panelists that we've got. And thank you so much, each one of you. In fact, I would like to highlight that both Ms. Mini Sengupta and Inrani ji also have been the founder principals of the respective schools that they've worked with, and this early childhood education, foundational literacy is very, very close to all the three resource persons we have today. So welcome to our Word with the Word. And as you all know that our focus to have this dialogue with the word is foundational literacy and numeracy in the new education policy, the challenges, the elements. So the format which we are going to keep today will be, we would request each one of you share your perspective on things that you would like to emphasize, and then we would take the discussion forward. And we will keep approximately around 5 minutes for each of the panelists, and then we take the discussions forward. And while you will be making the presentations, I will keep my pens and papers ready to be educated and to keep the information there to take it forward. So may I please, I think there is a little bit of a glitch. Mini G is just logged out. I'm sure she'll come back. We all will brave the technology glitches, but then all will be fine, I'm sure. So may I please request Manoj Kumar Panda ji, principal of the Jan International School, Kanpur, which is it's a school that boasts about being having a residential unit, a school which has a day boarding unit, which also has a day school. And so, Mr. Panda would be has a in the current assignment, the school where he is heading at the moment has all the flavors of education. So, may I please request Mr. Panda, if you may enlighten us and share your area of thrust about this education policy in the context of foundational literacy and numeracy.
Good evening, sir. Let me first thank you for inviting for such a prestigious panel discussion, and that too a topic which is the most priority under the CE, that is early childhood care and education, that is the foundational literacy and numeracy, which is a very, very important fundamental principles out of 22 fundamental principles which has been included in our recent National Education Policy 2020.
Okay.
Being a history teacher, let me slightly go back to the history of National Education Policy. I'll not go to the ancient time, but in 1968, Kothari Commission started, and under
Right.
this Kothari Commission, the then Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi implemented the first National Education Policy.
Right.
Then again, it was revised in 1986 when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister, and few more things has been added to that. Then in 1992, under P. Narasimha Rao ji, the then Prime Minister, and in 2005, it was during Manmohan Singh ji. So we have seen over so many decades, there are a lot of changes. You know, in 1986, we had this 10 plus 2 plus 3 system. And so it's been long due, right? From 1986, you could see 2020, it is almost 35 years.
Okay.
Uh, so keeping this national, this particular topic, early childhood care and also education,
Right.
which is a very, very important aspect of the national education policy.
Right.
You know, let me slightly tell you that in India, we are
Right.
having around 253 million students
Okay.
in K-12 schools. I'm not talking about the pre-primary. In 1.4 million schools.
Right.
Out of 60% of this 253 million, that is around 152 million in
Right.
government schools, and 40%, that is 101 million in private
Right.
schools. So
Okay.
now education is fundamental for achieving full human
Right.
potential,
Right.
developing an equitable and just society, and promoting the educational development. This is the
Right.
mantra of the new education policy under ECCE.
Okay.
Now, the overall aim of the ECC will, which is already, I mean, implemented from this year onward, that to attain the optimal outcomes in the domains of physical and motor development, cognitive development,
Right.
socio emotional ethical development, cultural
Right.
artistic development, and the development of communication and early language literacy and numeracy.
Okay. Right.
Now, under the under this ECC, one has to understand the early education, which is a very, very important factor. Around 5 crore students.
Right.
This is the survey done by NGOs, governmental and NGOs also, that 5 crore students, they are lagging behind as far as these two aspects are concerned in the early childhood care and education, both in
Right.
literacy and also numeracy.
Right.
And the ability to read and write and perform
Right.
basic operations with numbers
Right.
is a very necessary as a foundation and an indispensable
Right.
prerequisite for all future students and for law. The
Okay.
ability to read and comprehend basic text and ability
Right.
to carry out basic addition and subtraction with Indian numerals is very, very important. Because
Very much.
when a child reaches to class 1, after 1 week of staying in class 1, then they don't turn up because they
Right.
don't have the fundamental literacy and uh, numeracy concept in their mind. So
Right.
that didn't allow them to. So this is really a matter of concern. So in this new education policy, this has taken as a national mission for as this particular fundamental principle is concerned. Now, under this early childhood care and education,
Sir, in my
thus,
role as a moderator and a timekeeper, you have 1 more minute.
okay, okay, the short-term goal, the it is very, very important for all of us to understand that what is the, it's a kind of crisis we can say, and
Right.
we, education fraternity, we have to
Right.
take this as priority, as a crisis, and must work hard to bring up to that level
Right.
so that the student can continue with.
All right. Thank you so much. And I think a very, very important point that, thank you for giving us the historical and the chronological perspective and the way things have happened. And, I would say the previous effort in the education policy, in my understanding, was more towards the structural element to it. Whereas in the current education policy, there is a greater emphasis on the procedures and the methodology and the and the pedagogical aspect is being focused a lot. And as you quite rightly emphasize that there are 5 crore population in the early childhood segment, which is not even having the functional numeracy and literacy. And if somebody cannot read and write, the whole comprehension and the basic ingredients required to build the education further. And that is why probably the nomenclature, foundational literacy and education, which you quite rightly emphasize, becomes a very, very significant issue. Now, maybe as we take our journey forward, our listening to our other panelists, one of the issues which will be of great significance, when we look into the Indian context, there are various types of schools are there. We have the government schools, government aided schools. We have Anganwadis. We have the private schools, private unaided, private aided schools. This particular the schools which are well equipped in better environment and better management focus is there. Probably functional numeracy and literacy is not that big a concern. But this number 5 crore that you also emphasize, that which segment are we talking about? How important it is in a holistic context, that how does it affect every element and every aspect of the community, and how important and relevant it is. We'll be talking about these aspects gradually as we progress in our discussion. So, taking the discussion further, and many ma'am, I understand there's a bit of a signal issue, and you also have switched from one set to the other very judiciously without letting everything get affected. Thank you so much for doing that. And now, you heard Mr. Panda emphasizing on the focus areas in the policy in the context of numeracy and literacy. Now, I would, policy is there. And the biggest concern, which we all are positive, we all believe that the government has a well-intended reasons for bringing about the changes. I look at the policy as a welcome draft, because there are a lot of goods and the positives are there. But still, the issue is, and the debate that is taking place on different platforms, that how pragmatic it is, how practical it is. It is the debate is about from file to the field. कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि जो पॉलिसी जिसको हम लोग बहुत ऑप्टिमिस्टिकली देख रहे हैं, ये फिर से एक पेपर अच्छा, एक वेरी ब्यूटिफुली प्रेजेंटेड डॉक्यूमेंट बन के ना रह जाए और ये एक्चुअली लोगों तक पहुंचे. हाउ डू यू सी द हाउ दिस कैन बी ट्रांसलेटेड? बिकॉज जब शुरू शुरू में पॉलिसी आई, बहुत लोगों ने उसको समझा, नहीं समझा, और एक प्राइमा फेसी एक डिबेट जनरेट हुई कि भाई कैसे मदर टंग बिकेम अ डिबेट. Every 10 kilometers, mother tongue changes. Hindi itself has so many dialects. So, when we say mother tongue, and how compulsory it is, how practical it is, how are we going to? There was a lot of hue and cry revolving around that. So, I would like to know that when you heard and when you went through the new education policy, and about the foundational literacy and numeracy and things that Panda sir has just emphasized for all of us. What is your take, that how do you think it will be translated into reality? It is practical, it is not practical. What is your take, and what is your area of emphasis?
So thank you, Mr. Mohan. Good evening to everybody. I hope I am audible, because
you are audible, ma'am. You're absolutely audible.
Thank you. Thank you. I missed part of Mr. Pandey's presentation, but I'm sure he's talked about the National Education Policy 2020 and what it says about foundational literacy and numeracy. And our concern as teachers is that is it implementable? So any policy is only as good as its implementation. The policy by itself, when you read it, is fantastic. It's wonderful. But how? So my concerns, or the concerns with my team when we have discussed it. So we must remember one thing, that the policy is not a curriculum framework. It is a vision that will help to frame the curriculum. Certain things we need in place to be able to successfully implement the policy. First of all, I feel that there should be clear and well-defined metrics or a measurement system that can measure the learning outcomes. So, for example, a teacher who teaches class 2 must know that by the end of class 2, the child should be able to read, I think it is something like 40 words a minute, should be able to read, the child should be able to read. Similarly, a teacher who's teaching class 3 should know that by the end of class 3, my children should be able to read about 60 words in a minute. So the goals have to be spelled out, they have to be simple, and they have to be measurable. So that's one. Secondly, another concern is teacher accountability, because unless the teachers are doing a good job, this policy will remain on paper, like Mr. Mohan said. So accountability of teachers and monitoring of teachers, which happens in the private schools, but in the non-private schools, it is sadly missing. And that is something that I think is an area of concern, Then at present, the curriculum of the grades that we are discussing, and like the policy also says that it is too difficult. Class 1 to 3, the syllabus is very unwieldy. It is very difficult. So children, they lose interest. There's a huge mismatch between the curriculum and the ability of the students. And so children are not interested, and they start going to school, they don't understand, and they drop out. So that is an issue. Learning, unless it is enjoyable and the child can relate to it and it is engaging, children are not going to continue to learn. And especially, I'm talking about not children from, maybe from the rural background, even in the urban background, right? So that's one. Then, for the policy to be successfully implemented, the most important thing I feel is teacher training. There have to be dedicated teachers who are trained to teach both these skills, reading and numeracy. And what happens in most schools is that the best teachers are reserved for the higher class. So when you think that a teacher is not very good, you give her a class 1 or a 2, and and that is where the real problem is, because the teachers handling the younger students, I feel personally, they need to be much more skillful than teachers who handle the older children. Because unless at this level, if we don't do the right thing, we have crippled them for life.
Right.
The skill of teaching reading and numbers is considered to be very simple. So you say it's very basic, anybody can do it, right? And these teachers are referred to as junior teachers sometimes. In many schools, these teachers are paid less than what a secondary school teacher gets. So hence, we are not attracting the best talent, whereas that is what is the need. You need, once the child up to class 3, we can teach the child to learn, then we are home. After that, the child will learn on his or her own. You don't need to worry so much about it. So that is another problem. And we must realize that the education policy will be relevant for students only if we can teach them these 2 basic skills.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if the correct pedagogy to teach reading and numbers is taught to the trainee teachers in the B.Ed courses or whatever teacher training courses that they're doing, if we can teach them these skills and we can tell them that this is the base, okay, it might be basic, but it's not simple. And you are the pillars of this whole policy. I think they will all rise to the occasion, and we are going to get, teachers who will be motivated to teach these skills in a better manner. Parents have a very important role to play. Even in urban areas, in schools like ours, we find sometimes that they don't know how to support the learning of their children. So many of the parents, they base their teaching on rote memorization. So the child, they sit with the child and the child learns the answers, etc. But ideally speaking, storytelling, puppetry, encouraging children to talk about their experiences. So these are things which can motivate the children to learn, I feel. And this is something that we should think about. Interest of the child in reading is also very closely related to the type of books we prescribe. So what happens in, especially, when we are trying to produce books which are cheap and can be easily available to everybody, we compromise on the type of pictures, we compromise on the text, the kind of text. So the child does not have interest, the kind of stories that are there in the text. If the child has an interest in that, he enjoys it, then definitely the child is going to be reading. So that is another thing that we have to be careful, or we need to put an effort into publishing the right kind of books which are attractive to the child. Then it is very important that, of course, which the policy says, but I don't know how we're going to do it, that the children have to be healthy. So not only, I feel, not only a midday meal, but a nutritious breakfast before they start the classes is, I feel, very, very more important than the midday meal. Because unless the child, when he's in an empty stomach or she's in an empty stomach, learning is not going to happen. So, and also, of course, regular health checkups and immunization is also very necessary for them to be in good health. And unless they're in good health, learning, we cannot ensure any kind of learning. Naturally, if the child is unwell, he's not going to learn. So far, in short, the focus has been on trying to ensure universal access to education. And we have compromised or not thought so much about quality. I think now the time has come that if we want to, the school dropout rate, if we want to reduce, then it is very important to ensure that we also think about quality.
So very rightly. And before I emphasize on the points that appeal to me, there's just one message from our one of the viewers popped up, and it's very interesting and intriguing. Says that it's from Aban Confectioner. She writes that how good to hear that junior school teachers are being called pillars of the education system. Finally, the truth. That's a very interesting observation, and probably that is how society and a segment of teachers felt that the primary teachers, whom you just now referred as the pillars of education, often have not been looked at, and probably that's the power of this education policy, that it is emphasizing, it is segmenting areas and having a focused importance being given to every area. It is not just the board exam results and the marks which is the focus. So the senior school becomes more important because that is the visible flashcard for every school to boast about the board results. And the emphasis is coming to the primary schooling year needs as well, because if that is not strong, probably the children will not grow up to learn that adequacy. And very critical point you emphasize, Ms. Sengupta, and that is you talked about right at the onset. You emphasized on the fact that it's not, policy is only as good as its implementation is, and we all agree to that. We all are in sync with that, and that is where you talked about the emphasis. Besides other points which caught my attention is accountability and monitoring. And I know there are schools with the vision, even in the private sector. Your own school, the Birla Group institutions, have gone through the NABIT academic audit. I know Mr. Manoj Kumar Panda and Indrani Sengupta ji's school has gone through HLS academic audits at different points of times. So there are schools which are having that vision and doing that. But as a government policy, the emphasis and focus has become more serious about academic standardization, the transparency in it, its its evaluation of the deliverables. That is becoming very, very significant. Now, maybe in our discussion further, the issue will be how government schools probably will get in sync with this. How comfortable will private schools be when the government starts monitoring that, when the government starts questioning, and will it be taken as an interference? Will it be taken as a advantage? Are the kind of questions which are coming in my mind, which we will deliberate and have a dialogue on. and that's where हम लोग इस पे और चर्चा करेंगे and take our discussion further. And you very importantly pointed out the training aspect to it, because I think that is the lifeline, that is the oxygen of the entire education system. The training of teachers, the skill aspect of it. Probably there's lots to discuss. That when we are talking about foundational literacy uh, in the remote rural areas, uh, do we have enough skilled manpower who where their own foundational literacy is appropriate or not?
Question.
Right? And I'm not talking about foundational literacy only in the context of English, uh, or whether it is English, Hindi, Telugu, Malayalam. Do we have people who are technically skilled to ensure that competence in children in the, and when we are talking about our education policy very clearly talks about nationalism with a global context. It's talking and emphasizing, locally trained but globally prepared citizens is what we are talking about. So, how are we going to ensure that kind of an exposure as well? Would be a point to discuss, which we will come gradually there. Friends, you've heard Mr. Manoj Kumar Panda, principal of the Jan International School in Kanpur. You just now heard Ms. Mini Sen Gupta, principal of Birla High School, Mukundpur in Kolkata in West Bengal. Now let me take you to Maharashtra and get a perspective from Indrani Gaur, principal of Fredo Word School in Dahanu. And Indrani ji, we were talking about locally trained and globally prepared citizen, and you and your background have you have worked outside in India. You started your journey, education journey in education profession from India. Then you moved out of the country and have served in Middle East and other parts of the globe, and gained that exposure. And then you have come back and chosen to be in India and heading an institution right now. Now, my question is, and of course, your perspective and take on that. That there's a lot of buzzword there about the new education policy, and people are saying that foundational literacy and numeracy also is a step in that direction. That the curriculum is the way it is defined and the presented now is matching up with a lot of international curriculums that we have been discussing and talking about. The internationalism in the curriculum is one of the things which is being talked about in different forums there. So, what is your take on new education policy in the context of foundational literacy and numeracy, and how do you compare it with the global perspective, the international curriculums?
Thank you, sir. And before I make a humble attempt at explaining things, I want to extend my greetings to you and my fellow panelists. And when my fellow panelist is someone I've worked under, like Mrs. Sengupta, coming one full circle. And also I want to go beyond and extend my greetings to the audience, and especially to Mrs. Aban Confectioner, because I've also trained under her. So it's a wonderful feeling that today I should be sharing my thoughts in their presence. It's a little unnerving, but I'll still make an attempt. So I just wanted to take a few points from Mr. Panda and Mrs. Sengupta's deliberation, and I want to just tell you, I'm a Bengali, and so I cannot talk or complete anything without having a mention to Tagore. So if you go back into the history, Tagore envisioned an education that was deeply rooted in one's immediate surroundings with a global phenomenon. So we are, how different are we, even if we have come so many years hence? So if we were to look at, I don't think we should feel unnerved at all at this time, because we are rooted in that thought, a good mix of the Oriental and the Anglicized world. So it's a mix of both. So since you asked me the question on how and what are the international elements that are there, and I think, again, I'll digress a little bit, and I will like to state that I think the NEP has come at a time which is most suited, because when everything collapsed and the virtual world opened up, suddenly we realized that there are no boundaries. We are able to connect with everyone. And so then why should we restrict, and why should we worry about the implementation of all the international practices which are happening outside? Now, I my journey in the in the primary section, and I remember I was told that we need some heavy weights there, but I don't know whether that was a literal meaning or between, whatever it
I
was.
can assure
But I
you not.
trust.
I can assure you not.
I certainly trusted my journey, and so it has contributed immensely to the way I look at things and my perspective, and the way I am able to guide my team forward. So I would like to call this policy an omnibus policy. So there are several elements in it and several things that people can take out of it. And again, I will base my premise on the thought that education is largely supposed to be transformative. And this education policy defines all of that. So it is a transformative policy. It's okay. It looks nice on paper. But yes, the devil lies in the implementation, in the details, which we will combat, and we will, if we have faith in our abilities, and like Mr. Panda said, that 40% are private schools. I think the 40% is a good number to be able to extend their influence on the 60% which is still struggling. And a lot of elements that you can see that they have spoken about in the NEP is there are, I think I can pull out certain things which will not lend itself to any kind of friction. And here I would like to talk about the things that are doable in the classrooms, because we have done it in the outside. Yes, I know I belong to the private sector. I've worked in the private sector, but it's absolutely not so difficult to be able to extend our help to wherever it is required. So I think a lot of the schools that I have worked in, we have worked on competency-based education, skill-based education that we see staring at us in the pages of the NEP. We are looking at blended learning, and even in today's world, whether we talk about the problem of digital divide, even then we have, even in the rural areas, children are logging in and trying to ensure that their education goes on unhindered. It is all of that is happening as well. So blended learning is again an international feature which will continue to happen. The development of the self through self-evaluation is something that Tagore talked of at that time. Here also we are talking about it currently. Then we talk about inclusiveness, which is an international feature also, and no more foreign to Indian setup at all, because schools are talking about inclusiveness. So equality, inclusiveness, lifelong learning, sensitivity, synergy, interdisciplinary learning. Like ma'am said that you can engage children if there is a connect with, and you can develop interest if they find some relevance with their immediate world. This is something that Tagore said then. This is something that we are saying now. And even in private schools, for that matter, we do a lot of real life application of the concepts. I will take a little moment to tell you that I did an extended workshop with the Finnish people. Okay. And when they came, they spoke about their philosophy, in which they said that they don't have lesson plans or their planning dependent on concepts. They arrive at the concept through something which is more interesting to the child. So, for example, they take up a butterfly and they come to the concept of everything else, whether you're talking about symmetry, whether you're talking about pollination, whether you're talking about everything else. So that's how they come. So the butterfly remains sort of fixed as the focal point, and everything else revolves around it. Something which is a real life connect. So real life connection is also an international feature that people they have put into the policy. I know many schools are doing it, because all schools are responsible schools. There can be no intended curriculum. There can be no intended the planned curriculum cannot be a whimsical feature. We are all doing it, but these are some of the international features which are there. Having said that, they are all in the NEP. If you see, they're also talking about the peer-to-peer support. Okay. whether it comes to if each child takes one or each school takes one school. And I think that's a very nice thought to take forward with the 40% of people who are already implementing a lot of the international practices. I think it's a good thought to take forward. And yes, these are some of the things, if I have to just quickly summarize, like the pillars of the NEP as regards the international features. So the quality, the competency-based learning, application-based, real-life, connect, interdisciplinary learning, equity, qualities. There's something for every child so that no child gets left behind. So then flexibility of learning, that is, can the child decide, okay, today I want to do this assessment through a fill in the blanks and not a match the following? That's okay. That's absolutely fine. So yes, a lot of things are there which can be spoken about. It's a debate. Yet I would like to believe that we educators are are hugely optimistic people, and we have donned the mantle of the transformation of the society. So why give up? I would definitely feel that there is a lot of transformative elements which are there, and we'll see. I'm sure we are all waiting for the actual implementation. Like I see outside India, if I may tell you that we would opt for validation of benchmarking tests for literacy, numeracy, like TIMS and PEARLS and all of that we were doing outside. And now I think that NEP states that very soon they're going to come up with something called NIPUN, NIPUN, which is also going to test understanding of literacy and numeracy for that matter. So a lot of things are in the pipeline, and if you see that they have staggered it very well. Experiential learning came out, so the joyfulness in the learning was something that everybody began to practice. Then the art integrated learning has been brought into the system. People began to explore on that. So all these connections have been made, and so finally the NEP has arrived. And at a time when we were just bumped off our regular setup and given a place where there was nothing, and we've all built it up with the virtual world. So I think there's a lot that we can do, and I'm very optimistic about it.
So, good to hear that we are very optimistic about it, and they have been even when we talk about the international context, foundational literacy and the numeracy skills have been an integrated part of established international curriculum. They had been a focus. And allow me to dramatize a bit to take the conversation further. And that is where क्या फाउंडेशनल न्यूमरेसी और लिटरेसी पे अभी तक कोई फोकस नहीं था? क्या इसकी वाकई में जरूरत थी? क्या इसको पॉलिसी में स्पेसिफाई करने की जरूरत थी? मिस्टर पांडा, इंद्रानी जी, मिनी जी, पूछता है भारत, जानना चाहता है भारत, क्या इसकी वाकई में जरूरत थी? क्या फिर ये सिर्फ दिखावा है, ये पहले से था? मिनी जी.
So, definitely, maybe even the policy which was made in 2005, it's a very good document if you read it as a document. But it is the implementation, like we said, that somewhere we fell short and we have not been able to reach the learning outcome. So we can see the results. So we have, like I said, there's access. A lot of children have access to education. But the number of children who go out, and especially in the rural areas and in the urban areas where they are going to the marginalized sections of society, girls are, so parents would rather have them working or getting married rather than going to school, etc. So definitely, like I said, this is the base, the pillar on which future education is going to rest. If, like I said, that if we can ensure that the child learns these skills by the age of 8 years of age, then we really don't have to worry. Like, for example, up to in class 1 and 2, we teach the child to read to learn. I'm sorry, to learn to read rather, learn to read. And in class 3, from class 3 onwards, so our focus is reading to learn. Self-learning. So instead of, so once we can teach them to learn to read, then our focus should be reading to learn. So unless I can do the first step, right? If I can, unless I can teach the child to read for himself or herself, then I will not be able to move to the next step. And self-learning, like Indrani was saying, that is going to be, because knowledge is available, information is available. It is how to use that knowledge is what we need to teach our children. So I'm not talking about the private schools. Maybe in the private schools we are able to do it, but I'm talking about, my concern is in the rural areas, in the urban areas, in the corporation schools, in the government schools, etc. So unless we can harness that, that attention, the rest of the policy is not going to be able. We will not be able to implement.
All right.
So ज़रूरत बहुत है, ज़रूरत बहुत.
जरूरत बहुत है और इस पे emphasis आने की भी जरूरत है, and I can see that Indrani ji wants to add to it. Indrani ji, whatever you want to say, I would also like to ask and add to it is जब हम foundational literacy की बात करते हैं, so what do we actually mean by foundational literacy? Because a lot of viewers are here who are parents, who are not teachers or educators. So I would like if you can just throw a light that when we say in the policy foundational literacy and foundational numeracy, that what does it actually mean? Is it about Hindi we are talking about? Is it the mother tongue that we are talking about, or is it a much bigger term than that? I think that clarity will be very important for our viewers as well.
Amitabh, one thing that we would like to, we should remember that the NEP is largely linked to the sustainable goals of 2030. That is the target year. But the foundational literacy and numeracy that they have mentioned in the NEP is strangely fixed. The accountability is fixed at 2025, which is 5 years from now. Yeah, so that is something that we need to. So again, you would like to, then you will throw that question at us that 2025. So wo 5 saal ka kya hua? So possibly, my only thing is that is my, like I said, I will make an attempt at understanding, and I will make an attempt at correlating something that Mrs. Sengupta just said about self-learning, as in learn to appreciate. I mean, reading to appreciate for self. That's more important. I think if you ask me, we should not get caught up only in the NEP and only in the foundational literacy and numeracy. I think the bigger picture is to generate a better workforce and quality workforce, where at a time when globalization has sort of removed the boundaries and made them thinner and transparent, and so that why should the 40% schools that are generating the students and giving to the country, why should they be the only ones who get the advantage of making these movements across? So it has nothing to do with whether you want to take up Bengali as your mother tongue, are you proficient in Bengali as your foundational competency, whether it's any of the languages, because India is such a vast country, or it is English, which we take up because as our second language, which we would like to take forward, and we are trying to get better at it, at the skills. Irrespective of which language you take up, your entire life's structure depends on those foundational grounds. Can I expect a class 9 student to begin reading where he's not reading with understanding, reading by himself, reading not even at 80 words a minute, for example? No, it's not happening. There are faults everywhere, but I think if we have been given 5 years from now, that makes it even more important that when you spell it out, or maybe there could be, I'll dramatize a little bit and say maybe it's trying to make the 40% of the private schools become heroes, which is actually which is not mentioned in the NEP. So maybe it's our time to become heroes.
It is our time to become heroes. And I think the educators have always been the hero. It's just that people and public are going to realize in the last 3-4 months, the education sector's heroics is there for all of us to see that if one sector that stood by their work, and by the parents and the student. It is the education sector, and they have been the real life heroes for everyone. And I'm sure these heroes are going to demonstrate another element of heroics in implementing the good element of the policy that is in discussion. Uh, Panaji, while listening to Indrani ji, it's very clear that and Vinny ji that अगर हमारी बेसिक लैंग्वेज पे पकड़ ही नहीं होगी, अगर हम चीजों को बोल नहीं सकते हैं, पढ़ नहीं सकते हैं, तो अगर हम बेसिक लैंग्वेज पे पकड़ नहीं है, तो ना तो हमें मैथ समझ में आने वाली है, ना हमें हिस्ट्री समझ में आने वाली है, बिकॉज आई कैन नॉट रीड, राइट, एक्सप्रेस. These are the basic ingredients that is why the word foundational literacy and the numeracy that we are talking about. So आपको क्या लगता है, we are all convinced on one side that कि ये जो हमारे अर्बन सेक्टर को अगर हम एक बार को हटा देते हैं, अगर हम रूरल इंडिया की बात करें, अगर हम रिमोट इंडिया की बात करें, अगर हम जो गवर्नमेंट एंड एनजीओ के जो रिमोट एक्सेस में स्कूल्स चल रहे हैं, सोसाइटीज के जो स्कूल चल रहे हैं, वहां पे probably this is still that it needs a big focus. And as you said right at the beginning that 5 crore people as per the statistical calculation is lacking and is devoid of foundational literacy. तो अगर 5 करोड़ बच्चे ऐसे हैं जो कि पढ़ नहीं सकते हैं, जो बोल नहीं सकते हैं, तो उनको बाकी और एजुकेशन को उन तक पहुंचाना एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है. We all are in agreement and we 4 of us are unified on that. Lekin India wants to know. I'm in a mood to dramatize today. So India wants to know that iska urban segment mein the relatively well-equipped institutions में इसका क्या impact होगा? Question is to all of you. Of course, I'm addressing it first to Pandasa.
Yes, as far as this particular foundational literacy and numeracy is concerned, as a private sector, we all were following. Till now, we are following. It was there in papers, in document, in the earlier policies also, but it was not practically done, and importance is not given to this sector, this principle. As you said earlier, that the higher education, that means your secondary and higher secondary, is given more importance than the primary and pre-primary. So now, at least the government has realized the need of the art.
Right.
As far as the urban area is concerned, all the schools who are having the infrastructure, the resource, the teachers, we don't have any problem. Well, as far as the rural area is concerned, it is a matter of concern. Whether it is earlier, it was there in standalone Anganwadis were there, where only the healthcare was taken care of, the nutrition part was taken care of. Then came the Anganwadis with primary education. Then we have got private pre-primaries and both pre-primary and primary in a cloud manner in some areas. Now, all of them will be now accountable. Why I'm telling this? Government is very serious about training. I'll just give one example of Anganwadis.
Right.
Anybody who is Anganwadis with pre-primary education, anybody is a plus two student, he will be given online certificate course through DTH mode. We have got many DTH through Tata Sky and Airtel. The government is telecasting day in and day out, and also backend help support will be there to these people. Then they have got certificate diploma course of 1 year also. So now government is very concerned about the teachers who will be teaching these pre-primary student in government areas. And it is not only Anganwadis clubbed with primary education or pre-primary education, in tribal areas also, and also rural areas.
Right.
Apart from that, the resource. Now everybody is having a mobile. Technologically, everybody is very, very savvy.
Right.
Now, there is a storehouse of information, resources, as far as Diksha as a platform is concerned.
Right.
And apart from that, the government has already directed, and both NCRT and also SCRT has started working on the curriculum also.
Right.
Now, all this factor indicates that the government is serious about this particular aspect of foundational literacy and numeracy under childhood care and education. And another thing I would like to bring to your notice, apart from that, they have also uh, already started implementing the national library where the books will be available, where they are going to resource
Digitalized.
as far as books are
Digitalized.
concerned, digital, and also the school libraries and also libraries where the things can be taken helpful. And
Okay.
those books will be given, which will be very, very enjoyable and also recreational. So those kind of topics, articles will definitely motivate these people. And believe in me, in rural areas, because of this incoming of technologies, not mistaken, there is a pre-primary teacher in Chhattisgarh somewhere. I'm forgetting the name of that place.
Mhm.
That lady took the permission of the panchayat on
Okay.
uh, prime minister program under some prime minister program. Every panchayat has been given a projector and
Right.
TV set and computer. So
Right.
she took the initiative of arranging all this thing with the help of the school management and also the panchayat, the sarpanch,
Right.
and
Right.
she started teaching them through her mobile phone through that project
Right.
in different intervals
Right.
by taking help of this diksha. This is heads up to the teacher, the way she has made that particular, I mean, the students of that area are very proud of her, and the people are very blessed, I must say. So this is just a beginning, and 5 years is a big time, and I think we
Right.
will go leaps and bounds as far as this new education policy is concerned.
That's thank you so much for sharing that example also. It is relevant in two contexts. One is in the context of NEP that you talked about, also in the context of current pandemic, that educators and teachers, they're so committed to their work and they are braving beyond the challenges which are there, and their mind is working more than 24/7 to see that how they can do the best for their children and for the cause of education. So salute to this teachers initiative that you talked about, and this also throws that optimism that we are getting more and more technologically equipped, that even taking the training in the remote areas may not be that difficult if it is planned properly and planned well. And I think government in different states is forming a committee to work on the roadmap for execution. Now, here, though our discussion is built up, our time is again racing very, very fast. But then I would like to encourage if one or two queries come from our audience and viewers, because so far they've been so engrossed. They were only appreciating and complimenting across, and I think they've been very, very positive. Friends, you're watching A Word with a Word, and our theme for dialogue today in A Word with a Word is foundational literacy and numeracy in the new education policy and its implementation. You are to help you understand this. We have connecting from Maharashtra, Dhanu in Maharashtra. This is Rani Guhaji, principal of Credo Word School, from one of the biggest state of the country, Uttar Pradesh, from Kanpur, the Dan International School, the principal, Mr. Manoj Kumar Panda, and from the cultural capital of India, Kolkata in West Bengal, we have Vinny Sen Gupta ji, principal of Birla High School, Mukundpur in Kolkata. And they are helping us out in this dialogue and in discussion. And I'm your friendly psychologist, Amitabh, and you're watching The School Times. And please feel free to put your queries if you want any clarification. I know we have very limited time now to take your queries in today's episode, but then we have one. I couldn't read the details, so let me read it while I put it to all three of you to respond to it. It sounds more like a comment, but also a thought by Swadhindra Sarkar. And a very good evening to Amitabh Mohan and all the eminent panelists. Would like to take the opportunity to say hello to Mini Ma'am, under whom I have worked, and in Raniji, who had been an endearing colleague. The policy looks quite promising and maybe achievable with the urban population. But when we look at the rural population, I think Montessori method will work better, but definitely in presence of the trained Montessorians. In fact, now with such a situation to motivate a child to learn. Now, with this comment, I am intrigued to further refine the query, and I would like all of you to address. We have Montessori. We have so many other methodologies prevailing. There are play schools are there. With different skill sets as a focus. And if you look into every city, is forgive my using the word, have this as a mushrooming growth. That every colony, every corner, there are play schools, there are preparatory schools, there are schools which are actually throwing focus on foundational literacy and numeracy. If there is anything that they're teaching them to settle down, they're teaching them the basic skills, they're teaching them how to speak and how to add or subtract. Now that is what they are focusing. Now with government's policy having this as a major focus, what will be the fate of these schools? Will they get? Will they face the challenge of survival? Because the regular schools, because now even pre-primary in the early childhood education, age 3 upward education is part of the formal education. It is also, and by implication, it is also will be covered, and that's my anticipation and interpretation under right to education, which was so far from age class 1 upwards. Now it is going to be age 3 upwards in the new education policy. Now there's going to be, so far there was no controlling body for these play schools and all. So what would be the fate of these schools? And as Mr. Sudhir Sarkar said, that Montessori was a good method. We have our own opinions and arguments, so we may agree, disagree. But he said that what my take from this is, there are existing schools which are catering to this in an urban environment. What will be their fate? And the dialogue is open to each one of you. You can take your initiative and respond to this. Jeevani ma'am.
Right. So the thing is that I don't think that the Montessori schools need to worry. It is they were there and they will be there because their focus is to teach the children, how to motor control and even foundational literacy, and they do a wonderful job. Say, for example, doing phonetics. Even now in the urban areas, there are schools which are taking full schools which are taking children at the age of 2.5, 2 years sometimes. Some of us, like our school, is taking children from 3 years of age. And if they come from a good Montessori school, which many of them are in the city, they are children are well equipped. They, their motor skills are developed, etc. But of course, we don't need to hurry them into writing, etc. Because that is where the motor skills, if they write too early in their life, then naturally their motor control is affected. And so the thing is that there is no fear that the Montessori schools will not be there, etc. But we are talking about, I am talking about, or we should be worried about the urban schools which are say, the mediocre level, where I'm talking about children with who cannot pay these hefty fees that some of the schools are charging. So those children whether they are going to the kind of Montessoris that we are talking about. Okay. Like there are many kinds of Montessori. The good Montessoris are teaching them the right thing. But there are schools where the child is going and where the child is being taught memorization, rote learning. So that is where we need to be careful. And of course, their parents do not have much choice, because the fees that that any school demands is the deciding factor for a parent, right?
Absolutely.
So that is the.
That is also something which government may have to define in times to come, because the kind of flexibility in the curriculum that there always was a flexibility. There was no restriction. Any subject can be taken with any other subject. Board never. But then there were administrative limitations where the schools were going into a limited subject options. Now, with the emphasis on the flexibility and even the vision that in the growing up years, somebody can take history and still be eligible to appear for engineering entrance exam. Now, that would require a different kind of preparation, different kind of manpower, different kind of fee structure. Are we ready for that? All those questions probably government will have to streamline and respond to it. Probably the government units may not have a challenge because government will fund it. But when it comes to private self-sustaining institutions, that is going to be also one of the concerns and challenges. But then you quite rightly pointed out that there will be future for these institutions, the play in the play group and play segment of schools, be it Montessori or any other method of education that they are working with. So nothing to worry, but yes, there is going to be more standardization in that context, which is going to come up. And if there's a comment from Ms. Confectioner is that it's not only Montessori method that is effective. A good blend of best practices from diverse pre-primary education is going to be there. And she's also talking about Froebel and Tagore, etc. Every element. And that is where the government new education policy is being eclectic, and it's going to provide a streamline. Probably these existing institutions will have to upgrade themselves and adapt to certain standardized procedures, which government is going to gradually recommend in the form of curriculum, but they will have the flexibility to operate, but subject to conditions. There will be asterisks now, conditions apply. So far institutions were coming up. If somebody has 1,000 square feet space or a 2,000 square feet space, it was coming up with an institutions without any conditions apply. The only change which is going to be there in the new education policy context, there will be an asterisk which says conditions will now be applicable, but they will be future, as Ms. Sengupta also pointed out. This brings me to another point which Ms. Confectioner has raised, and I would like our panelists to respond to that. And Imraniji, if you can throw some light in your perspective, and then if Viniji wants to add. I think Panaji is having some technical issue, and that is why he got logged out. We are as soon as he gets connected back, we will take him on. Confectioner's submission and a query and inquiry is that what can we do to attract more competent people to teaching? That's always been a major concern for all of us, particularly in the pre-primary and primary classes, where the current notion seems to be, anyone can teach little kids. Thank you so much for this casual expression at the end. Anyone can teach, and that's what I said just a few seconds back, that anyone who has a 2,000 square feet space and a bit of money to back with some equipment to be purchased feels I can start a play school. It will not be the same anymore. It is going to be conditions applied. So she says, in this context, with this mindset prevailing in the majority, what can we do to attract more competence in teaching, particularly pre-primary section? Imraniji.
I think it's a privilege to be able to respond to something that has come from Mrs. Confectioner, and I'll again make an attempt to answer. I think it's no. I'm not going to say anything that is what is not. What should I say? I mean, people don't understand. Largely, it is that we have higher qualification made mandatory, even at the lower level. And of course, I mean, you have better pay scales, which will attract people even at that level. I'll tell you a little bit again about what I had picked up from the Finnish workshop that I had attended. It was a good 3-day workshop, which was a residential program, which I had interacted with people from Finland. And they that the teachers who teach at the lower level, that is the pre-primary level, have very high degrees, and they get their accreditation from the university. Only then they are permitted to teach at that level, which we don't have. If you, even when we all know that pre-primary teachers teaching at in our schools in India are if they are 12th pass with a training, then we allow them to teach. We do that. So I think there are two main things. One is make it mandatory for better qualification, and if you do that, then you have to revise the pay scale. So if we are able to do these two things, I think it will attract better talent, and it will attract people who are more confident in the delivery of their lessons, and there will be a certain desire for excellence, I think, and also schools will see the change. Then we will be able to even mold our parents, I think, to a certain extent, where they don't become like the recent phrase that has come up, which you are aware of parent bullying that is happening. I think that will also largely get restricted. Having said that, I'll also take this opportunity to tell you one incident from my story. Is that when I was working under Mrs. Confectioner and I was teaching class 4 and 5, I'm a postgraduate, but I was in the primary department. And I remember, thanks to some timetable hassle, I had a Thursday which had 2-3 classes free. And I remember Mrs. Confectioner had sent me, every Thursday she would send me to this kindergarten class. And I had to take a class there, not about anything academic, but she left it to me. She gave me a lot of freedom to do whatever I felt like. So I thought, being an English teacher, I chose to tell them stories. So every Thursday I would tell them stories. But that, I think, I realized how difficult it is to handle that age group. And it requires a lot of skill. Yes, training is important, but I think it should also come with a certain amount of certain qualification. I think if you make graduation mandatory, even that helps. So a basic qualification should be made fixed at that level.
So there is an element of basic qualification, and the higher level of qualification should be made mandatory if we want a better quality of teachers, and it should not be anyone and everyone who should be allowed.
And also we also have an uphill task of what ma'am said, that like where people feel acha kuch nahi karne ka, chalo padhate hain. So you've not been able to fit in anywhere. Let's go try our hand at education. The entire family said, go become a teacher. And teacher where? Kindergarten. That's something we still have to fight. Like, it's one of those evils of the society that is still prevalent, and we have an uphill task, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. And Panda sir, welcome back. We missed you for a few minutes. I understand the technology is playing the spoil spot. Just to put you back in the context, while you were not there, we took few of the audience queries, and one of the query that we dealt with, that what will be the fate of these play schools, Montessori and others. That's what we talked about. And just now, Indrani ji responded to the query by Ms. Confectioner about how to attract better quality teachers and what could be the mode of operation for that. But Indrani ji, you quite rightly and very, very correctly said that one is the qualification aspect of it. That is, the eligibility should be made more formal and at a particular level, so that we ensure better competence for the people who are teaching. It should not be like, it should be like best of us should become teachers, the rest of us can go wherever we want to go, rather than it being vice versa. And that is where the qualification is important there. And very important aspect is that why so far in Indian context we've not been able to attract a lot of good brains, because when we match up with a corporate sector salary of a graduate who goes into management jobs gets more than, double the salary of what a teacher gets. So naturally, there are a lot of people, they have needs to cater, they have a family to support, and they have aspirations to fulfill, because we do not cease to exist as humans, and even if we become teachers, and we have aspirations and ambitions. And so there is a need for a salary to be looked into. That's an important factor. Better salaries will also attract more competence to cater to that. That's so very beautifully pointed out. However, there is a challenge which government has to answer. More salary to teacher means the fee structure has to be relooked at. Government-aided institutions probably will get a government funding, and there is a 6% budgetary allocation, which may channelize and cater to that need in the government sector. But the private sector also needs to be provided a particular element of flexibility to charge a particular amount, so that they can pay it to their staff and the manpower, which is at a particular competency level. It can be defined that if you are having people from this competence, only then you can charge this kind of a fee structure. That is okay. Maybe government has to come up with that kind of a grading of it to be able to charge a particular level of fee structure, rather than providing a blanket restriction that every school can only charge up to this point of. I think something of that kind also would be a requirement. And I would like to acknowledge this confectioner's presence here. I think we all, it's a education fraternity is a small fraternity. We all have been together in some place or the other, some platform or the other. Thank you so much for being your active participation in this dialogue on the forum of Word with the Word, Miss Confectioner, and very, very relevant inquiries that you have put in. Here we have there was a thought which was coming in my mind, and there's another close friend from the fraternity, principal of Jan Word School in Mathi in Kanpur, Sadhna Pandey has written, because that was when Indrani was speaking, when Yuniji was speaking, the thought was coming in my mind that probably there is a need for refreshing of the license for the teachers. The need for a teacher license, probably that is also going to be let's be prepared, that's going to happen in times to come. And that's the issue which Sadhna Pandeyji also has raised there. And Panasa, I would like to take this question, this statement of us and your opinion, and then open the forum for everyone before we go for one round of closing remark for all of you, because we are exceeding our time for the broadcast for today. But then this is the last statement we'll take, and I'll just read what Sadhna Pandeyji has written. She has written, the teachers should have license for teaching. Probably so far we have B.Ed as a qualification, or there's a CBSE has an examination that teachers have to take. But then how it will be effective? What could be the modus operandi, and is it relevant, or will teachers be willing to take up these? It's easy for me to say that license is required. Now, anyone who's a new entrant into the teaching fraternity probably will have to follow it if they want to be teachers. But what about people with 20, 30 years of experience? Today, as a psychologist, as a practitioner, you ask me, you give me a person with depression, probably I'll be able to bring him out of it. But you ask me to give an examination, probably I'll have to think, probably I'll have to prepare. But then probably that is the need of the hour. So, Panasa, what's your take and comment on that?
As far as a teacher qualification is concerned, it is very plain and simple that in different categories we have got minimum qualification to be a teacher. Maybe a graduate, maybe a postgraduate, maybe a B.Ed, and NTT.
Right.
And the selection process is also is done by the head of the institution, and the process is three tier, three tier. Like first we take the entrance test, then the demonstration, then the final interview. What I think this process is up to the mark. Yes, we can make a person appointed for a week, then we'll judge that particular teacher in the school. As most of us, we do it, we keep it teacher on probation for 1 month, which generally we do it. Unknowingly, we are doing it. That condition should be there, and accordingly, the requirement will be filled up, whether that particular teacher is up to the mark or not. From that, selection process will do. As far as license is concerned,
Right.
we don't. As far it is my personal opinion, we don't want to go back to that license Raj. Sitting at
Right.
home also, I have managed my driving license. I need not to go to the. So these are the things which will make, which will be, this license will be available very easily by paying money. The core thing is we have got CBSE conducts the CTT examination.
Yes.
Anybody who is not qualified, CTT qualified, and a B.Ed, and also a postgraduate or graduate, depending upon the TGT, PGT, and PRT. I think this is the best process which we are having at present. It can be improved. It can be improved, but going for a license will, then you cannot deny a person who are having a license. They can claim that this particular school is not keeping me, although I am having a license. So we'll be inviting trouble if you'll go for this license.
So there will be conditions apply. We cannot say, if we go for license, there has to be a lot of detailing to be done, and the license will not be a compulsion for employment for any school. There are a lot of minor nitty gritties have to be worked on, but license is a good idea for execution, as you say. And this is where, thank you so much, each one of you. And I would like to now have a closing word in this, your last dialogue with your last word with the word in this episode of education policy. I starting with Indrani ma'am.
I thought by virtue of being the youngest, I thought I would be the last one to say. So I was waiting to hear everyone else. So thank you, sir. It was indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be a part of this program. And I'm your ardent fan, like I keep saying, and I won't hesitate to be candid as well. So now that we come to the closure of this session, I just want to say that as a teacher, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. So teaching is all about being optimistic at all times. And teaching is about inspiring change. That's what is teaching about. So having said that, let us all collate our efforts to bring about the transformation that has been spelt out, and change of the overcoming learning poverty that people have identified. And I want to use the words of Confucius, and I want to conclude. Education breeds confidence, confidence breeds hope, and hope breeds peace. And nothing best but this at a time when everyone seems to be rattled with a lot of things, and where peace is something that I feel is becoming so exclusively far away, running far away from us. Maybe if we bring about a change, and maybe if we harness that optimism that we have in all of us, we will be able to give the coming generations a world where they will be able to see the peace that has eluded us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We are optimistic that somewhere we will be able to take that first step to ensure better environment, better peace in the world, and our generation next will be in better times. Not that we are living in bad times. We are all, every era will always have its challenges. We are living in good world, but we will leave an even better place for them. Thank you so much for being with us, Indrani ji.
Thank you.
I would go next to Pana sir for your final word with a word on foundational literacy and numeracy in this episode of the School Times.
Let me, sir, first thank you very much because the topic is very, very vibrant and it is the need of the hour. And this is the most priority element of the entire national education policy. And this is the foundation, base of any child about whom we dream about his nation, further his future. And the future of the child is the future of the nation. And the way we have started thinking, which देर आए दुरुस्त आए लेकिन आए तो सही. And I'm so happy about this new education policy, particularly this particular element. And I also thank you for choosing a very, very enlightened topic so that everybody will be having this idea what exactly we all educators meant. And this will go a long way to all our viewers who also realizes why we are giving so much importance to this particular topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for your very profound presence and expression. And what you said is very, very meaningful. That the minimum that we have achieved is everyone is thinking and talking about this policy. Everyone is talking about education. Everyone, and probably as Indrani ji also a little while earlier said, probably it wouldn't have come at a more opportune time because of the lockdown, because of the everyone being there on the social media, and the awareness about this education policy also has got that escalation, and that awareness is going to be one single largest factor for this policy getting implemented very, very effectively as well. And that's what you said, that we are all thinking about it, and everything begins at the thought level first. As we say, all things are created twice, first mentally, then physically. And this
Exactly.
endeavor on this platform also is to bring that clarity at the thought level, so that when we convert it into reality, we do it with a greater level of efficiency. So thank you so much for being with us and your profound words and presence. The last word, as Nani ji said, being the youngest, I should have been the last one, but ensuring the superiority, giving the last word to Miri ma'am on this platform. Ma'am, your word, your final word with the word on foundational literacy and numeracy as an element of the new education policy in this episode of A Word with a Word.
So it has been a pleasure, Mr. Mohan. Thank you so much for having me. And it was a pleasure working with or hearing out Mr. Pandey and, of course, Indrani, an old friend. Like we said, we've been saying throughout that this level, I feel, is the most important. You've dealt with that today, and I'm very lucky to be able to put my thoughts across, because this is something very close to my heart personally. And like Indrani said, that yes, as teachers, we are hopeful, we are optimistic. This is a wonderful, when we started out, we said that it is a wonderful policy. And now it just needs to be implemented. And we hope that each of us will do our bit, and let us work together to ensure that we create a country, a new India, and this policy is definitely going to help.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Let us hope for the new India, and this new education policy is definitely a step in that direction, which is going to create a new India. And as a vision says, that more nationalism, more nationally trained, locally trained, but global citizens is what we are looking at, contributing to the global cause. We want to be locally competent, but we want to be a global contributors with this new education policy. And we are, I'm sure, going to go in that direction. Coincidentally, I think there was a little drop in signal for Indrani ji. She's just got logged out. I'm sure she's going to connect. But then, thank you so much for being with the show. I'm just putting you down in the studio for my closing remarks with the audience. Thank you so much, viewers, for being with us. Thank you so much, Ms. Mini Sen Gupta, Mr. Manoj Kumar Panda, Ms. Indrani Guha, connecting from the three different corners, from three different institutions, from the world's largest democracy, that is India. Indrani ji from Dahanu in Maharashtra, principal of Credo Word School. Mini Sen Gupta ji, principal of Birla Boys School, Mukundpur in Kolkata, the cultural capital of India, and Manoj Kumar Pandaji, one of the largest state of India, that is Uttar Pradesh, connecting directly from Kanpur, principal of the Jain International School. Thank you, each one of you, for being with us and helping me out to make this particular element of the education policy clear to our audience and viewers. Audience and viewers, thank you so much for all the love and affection that you are showering on us. Your trust, your confidence is our motivation to keep going and bringing in the new issues for us. And we will remain committed to this. Stay tuned for the next episode. And we are going to bring in more issues of the new education policy with eminent professionals and guests to help us out and assist us in this journey. So thank you so much. Stay tuned and keep watching A Word with a Word every Saturday, 4 p.m. Signing out, your friendly psychologist, Amitabh Mohan.